try that.
I got my microphone muted on the screen on purpose right now, though.
Oh, okay, yeah, she can't hear you until you unmute it.
Okay. I just want to make sure as I'm jumping around with a few things.
Right, sure.
And then. Let me open up the agenda and I'll go to Okay, I think I'm ready. Okay, good evening, Chairperson Sellers. Can you hear me? Make sure I cut the volume up.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Sellers, I can hear you.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm ready to start whenever you are.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we do have 6 commissioners on, which gives us a quorum. So if you want to go ahead and do your disclaimer, Dr. Muhammad, we'll go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. So, good evening, everyone. This is today's August 9th, and this is the Human Relations Commission meeting. Thank you. I'm Dr. Ferris Muhammad, the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Lawrence. I'll be facilitating the Zoom meeting. Here are a few housekeeping items for this virtual meeting. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded on the City of Lawrence YouTube channel. The public chat function is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. When you are not participating in the meeting, please mute your microphone. When you are participating in the meeting, please keep your video on. When you are not participating in the meeting, please turn your video off. You will still be able to hear the meeting. You can turn your video back on when you are participating. Turning your video off when you are not participating allows the active meeting participants to be seen on the screen. If you have any trouble, please send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute microphones and/or turn off people's video to minimize distractions. Please remember to state your name every time you speak for the benefit of those listening remotely. And now I'll turn the meeting over to Chairperson Sellers.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. This is Commissioner Sellers, Chair of Human Relations Commission, and thank you for those of the public who are watching virtually or participating in public comment for our August meeting. Before we get started, I will do a quick roll call, and then we'll jump into our agenda. First, Commissioner Emerson.
Commissioner Emerson's here, present.
Commissioner Sheldon Sherman.
Present.
Commissioner Haswood.
Present.
Commissioner Stevens.
Present.
Commissioner Bloxham.
Present.
Commissioner Barnett.
Present.
Commissioner Falls. Commissioner Logan. Commissioner Sellers, present. We have a total of 7 of our commissioners present, which allows us to conduct business with a quorum. So commissioners, if you have your agendas up and available, we will go ahead and jump right in to approval of minutes. If you remember, we did not have our June minutes at our July meeting. So we do have 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening. So we will do those collectively, but I will give you a moment if you have not yet reviewed the minutes from the July 12th as well as the June 14th meeting. You now have time to do so. And then I will be asking for a motion to approve the June and July meeting minutes as presented if there are no corrections. Commissioners, if there are no additions or updates that need to be made to the June or July meeting minutes, I do need a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
This is Commissioner Emerson. I move the motion to approve the minutes for June and July.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 14th and July 12th meeting as presented. Is there a second?
Commissioner Stevens, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. So the motion's been properly moved and seconded to approve the June 14th and July 12th meeting minutes as presented. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Emerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheldon Sherman?
Aye.
Commissioner Haswood?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloxham?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers, aye. So with a vote to 7-0, motion carries with the approval of the minutes. Moving on to our agenda item B, the receiving of the case report. Commissioners, you did receive the August case report or the July case report, my apologies, via email from the City Prosecutor's Office, Ms. Elizabeth Lafoca. She was unable to meet with us this evening, so it was on our due diligence to review the case report. So you do have time. We will not discuss anything since we do not have Ms. Lafoca here with us this evening. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding Ms. Lafoca's report, please ensure that you direct those questions to her. Are there any comments in regards to the July case report provided to us by Ms. Lafoca? All right, hearing none, we will move on to agenda item number 2, ordinance research request response from the legal department. So we did have, forward to Tony Wheeler, city attorney, the request in regards to the public nudity ordinance, in regards to public comment, as regards to the legalities as it related to the 10th Circuit District's decision in the Equal Protection Clause. I did receive notification, as well as all commissioners should have received that reply back. But however, Ms. Wheeler did notify myself and Dr. Muhammad that the city is in the process of reviewing ordinances and providing recommendations to the city commission on moving forward on any ordinances that would need to be amended as well as repealed. And that particular ordinance is on the agenda for discussion for recommendation by the city commission. And so based on the discussion, based on what was shared with myself by Tony Wheeler, she had suggested that we wait until the city makes a decision on whether or not they plan to repeal that particular ordinance, and whether or not how their decision is made, then we can move forward if we want to go back and look at amending or pushing any information, any amendments or changes to that particular ordinance after that piece. And so that is the information she shared with us. So as it stands, it would be that that particular ordinance is up to be reviewed for recommendation for amendment or repeal, revocation, based on the decision made by the city commission. If they choose to keep or revoke, then we can move forward with our decision to make a recommendation on moving forward if that differs from what our commission would want to have done with that ordinance. And that she would then render a decision based on the city commission's decision on that. So it's one of those things where it's not on the back burner, but it's one of those that is up for consideration to be revoked. Depending on that decision, then our ask of her will then be rendered based on what the city commissioners decide to do. So that was a lot of words for something I could have probably made a little bit more concise, but that is where that's where we are with that. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the decision that was made or the recommendation that was made to us by City Attorney Tony Wheeler and what she has laid out to us?
This is Commissioner Emerson. Thank you, Chair Sellers. My only question is more on time frame. Did we kind of get an idea of when that next step may be completed, just so the public may have a better idea when we would receive just notification of, okay, now the city has done their review.
Oh, this is Commissioner Sellers. Commissioner Emerson, we lost you there. So I think what you were going at is regards to timeline. So yes, so Ms. Wheeler did let us know that review and discussion of review with the city commissioners would come up in August. So it will be at one of the August meetings that discussions and movement on that would be made. So based on whenever after that meeting time with the city commissioners, then we would have a timeline as far as with the review. I would imagine, not to speak for Ms. Wheeler, that if a decision was made at one of the next 2 to 3 meetings that the city commission would have here in August, and that their recommendation would move forward to either repeal or amend or do nothing, then she would render her recommendation to us in hopes by our next meeting in September, which is scheduled for the 13th, and then we can move forward as such. But per her email, she had anticipated presenting this information to the city commissioners in August.
This is Commissioner Emerson. Thank you, Chair Sellers.
And Chairperson Seller, this is Dr. Ferris Muhammad. And just to add to that, I think the communication that I have received from the legal department was that they are anticipating that this will come before the city commission on the 17th. And depending on contingent upon what decisions the city commissioners arrive at, that would kind of start that timeline that Commissioner Emerson is inquiring about. In addition to that, I also received communication from legal department, I believe on Friday, in response to this request. And so I could just read the brief email that I received related to this request. So coming from the legal department, it says staff has conducted a cursory review of the Human Relations Commission's question regarding section 14-602 of the city code regarding indecent exposure. While similar laws have been considered and upheld as valid in other jurisdictions, there is no law in our jurisdiction that directly addresses the constitutionality of laws that ban females' toplessness. The 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the federal circuit court that establishes the law in Kansas, considered a related issue in 2019 regarding public nudity, but ultimately the court was tasked only with determining whether a preliminary injunction was appropriate and not with analyzing the constitutionality of the law. Several cities in Kansas continue to have similar laws on their books, including Wichita, Lenexa, Overland Park, and Topeka. This ordinance is under review by staff, which will continue to monitor their case law. So that's sort of where they're at right now. They've conducted a cursory overview of the law and saying it's an ongoing research process as far as analyzing that law and seeing what that in conjunction with what the city commissioners decide later this month at the next commission or one of the next commission meetings.
This is Commissioner Sellers. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for that additional context on this agenda point. Commissioners, do we have any other questions, comments in regards to this matter? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with agenda item number 3, which is our committee reports. Before we jump in to those reports, I do know we have at least one group that plans on doing an overview of their updates. I did want to bring up something that's been brought to my attention as we have kind of started this process. As you know, we began this in May as far as identifying how do we utilize the strength and talents of our commissioners to at least try to chunk down some of the task work of the Human Relations Commission that serves as a voice to the civil rights of those in our community as it relates to public accommodation, housing, and employment. And so we had began that work by identifying 3 key areas to focus on: Chapter 10 ordinance, cross-cutting as it relates to collaborative work between other boards and commissions, as well as program development. The idea behind that was to allow commissioners to have a little bit more small group, have some autonomy, but also to do some small group work, which will break down a little bit of that maybe sense of vulnerability or a sense of security, as to be able to speak freely on matters and gain more insight about the work that is charged by us as commissioners. And so as that work that moved, we had set the deadline to come together to have some preliminary recommendations from our groups to share to help continue to move the work forward, so that we are doing work in a decent and orderly way, but also with some meaning behind what we are charged with. And I know that some of our groups, it's taken a while for us to get off, to kind of, to take off in a manner that maybe would be more expedient or efficient as one may have hoped. But I do know that there's been some concerns with as far as commissioners' commitment to meeting regularly, commitment to engaging with their committee members, and as well as coming to the table with authenticity and intentionality. And so again, this all came to pass when we first met in when we first met in January, in that retreat fashion, to talk about what are the goals and objectives of the Human Relations Commission as it relates to the new strategic plan. And so the thought process was that having our small groups would allow us the opportunity to be able to think in smaller chunks so that we would be able to develop goals. And so that premise hasn't left, and I hope that hasn't left each one of you all as we've navigated through this work. We're approaching the end of the year, and as the city is preparing, as we prepare for a budget and what that looks like, our commission needs to be preparing for what the work is going to look like in 2022. It's only a couple of months away. And so knowing that with the idea of us more than partway through the year, and with the new year coming, as well as knowing that we are also in that space where there could be potential turnover with the commission, I want to stress to each and every one of you how important it is that in these last few weeks, not knowing the status of where everyone will be after our next meeting in September, that you take the time to do some intentional work with your committees around this work. I think there's no need there's no space to call anyone out, but I think there's an opportunity here to say, we know what we've been able to give. And what I would like to see is at our next meeting in September, that we have each group presenting some preliminary recommendations. It doesn't have to be finite, detailed outline, but at least something that will help continue to build the momentum that we have created so far with our commission. We've come way too far to try to start going backwards. And I think we're at a place where we can do it. There just has to be some intentional work around it. And if there are committees that are struggling and you want to lean on someone, let me know. I've almost heard from almost not everyone, but probably half of everyone on this commission about the committee work. And as a chair, that makes me happy, but I can also say there's quite a few that I've not heard from, and that also makes it concerning. And so I really want individuals to kind of dig down as much as you possibly can these last few weeks, because there could potentially be some turnover in our commission. And I would like those who are leaving to at least want to know if they're going to leave, that you leave some imprint on this commission, and that also that you're leaving the commission in a better place than you left it or when it came to you. So I want to implore our committees in these last 3 weeks to, I don't know what it looks like, whether you meet once a week or you meet for 4 hours, or you guys, go away on a retreat. I know some pretty awesome bed and breakfast locations here in Douglas, as well as around the area. Maybe you have a little kind of bon voyage party to yourself. I don't know what that looks like, but I would really implore the committees to get together. And if you're still struggling and you've not been able to connect with your committee member, or there's a committee member that's been missing in action and you're having a hard time getting them into the fold, let me know so that I could try to make some connections, or at least work through the process with you all, as long as we stay within core and coma guidelines. But I would like for each of our committees to have some type of preliminary recommendations and something to share substantively at our meeting in September. So that was a lot of me talking. Now I want to listen to others, just to kind of hear just to get your thoughts on committee work. And I know, like I said, our Chapter 10 committee did have some things that they wanted to share this evening. So before they share, I would like to open that up to anyone else on the board. All right, silence could be deadly. That means we're all in agreement. So however it looks, I want us to try to get that, I want us to get that work done. So try, but do. So let's try to get together, reach out to me as your chair if you need any assistance or guidance. But at our September meeting, let's make sure that each and every one of our committees have something to share. I do have another piece to share. Before our Chapter 10 group starts, I will say the reason why this work is important is I know that we are starting to get a lot of feedback from other boards and commissions that want our input, that want the commission's input on matters. And so, we have a lot of groups that are coming to us. We know CPRB, we know the Historical Marker Society, the Historical Marker Commission and Board in regards to that. And we do have a representative from our commission who should be reporting back on that. And so we also have the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. And so these are boards and commissions that are wanting to collaborate with us on some hybrid work items. And so we can't do that if we're not focused and succinct on the work that we're doing. And so I would love for our commission to be more involved. I know that speaks to cross-cutting, but that work still flows back up to our commission as a whole. And that just because it may fall up under one commission and one committee. It doesn't mean that we all can't have a say in it. And so there is some information that Dr. Muhammad and myself will be sharing with the commission around the possibility of a fair housing ordinance. There's been some key community partners who have been advocating for something of that nature and have shared it with other boards. And so there's some opportunity there for us to do some hybrid projects with several boards in regards to this. And so, and even expanding that work. And so I want to be able to present that to the commission as a whole. But like I said, there is some information that we need to get out to everyone before we can have some discussion and move to action on that. So I will make sure that Dr. Muhammad gets that, will forward that email to you all so that we can review it and come prepared at our September meeting to move that work. And again, this is all work that has the potential to help us develop goals and expectations for this commission for either to close out the year as well as to prepare us for the next year. So as you are doing your group work, think about preliminary recommendations that is going to continue to move this work that has a goal in mind that can speak to the strategic plan, the commitments and outcomes of the strategic plan. And if I need to resend that information to you, send an email to me and let me know. But again, your preliminary recommendations should be goals for our commission that is centered around the outcomes and commitments of the strategic plan. So, a lot of talking. Any feedback, questions, comments, or concerns? All right.
Chair Sellers, I just wanted to, this is Commissioner Emerson, just thank you for censoring.
No problem. That's what they pay me the big bucks for. Okay, Chapter 10 group. I want to give you all the floor to give the commission an update on some of the work that you've been doing these last few months. So Commissioners Bluxham, Emerson, and Barnett.
This is Commissioner Barnett. I reported back last time that we have been working on some substantial changes, and that continues. I think that our changes are so significant that we want to make sure that we have the buy-in of the administration as well as the community before we move forward. I don't want it to be seen as the subcommittee or the Human Relations Commission proposing any kind of drastic change without the support of stakeholders. So we need to meet with Dr. Muhammad first, and then we will have some changes to bring forward to the September meeting. Commissioner Bluxham and Commissioner Emerson, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
This is Commissioner Emerson, Commissioner Barnett. I want to say thank you for just bringing in the importance of having stakeholders in our community. I think that's really important. So I just wanted to say awesome for making sure that we are communicating that out to the public today. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of that brainstorming with Dr. Muhammad. So thank you.
All right, this is Commissioner Sellers. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our Chapter 10 committee? All right, hearing none, thank you, commissioners, for at least giving us an update into the work you've been doing. And I do look forward to seeing that preliminary recommendation. I know you've shared some of your notes with, I know Commissioner Barnett has shared some of her notes with me in regards to the work that your committee is doing. And I do look forward to having some robust discussion around that in September. All right. We don't have any other commission items we don't have any other agenda items, and we don't have any commission items. So we're now to public comment. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to provide up to 3 minutes of comments this evening?
Chairperson Seller, this is Dr. Ferris Muhammad. We have no one here present, but it looks like online, perhaps, I think, hand raised by Mr. Chris Flowers.
All right, I do see a hand. Mr. Flowers, you now have the floor for 3 minutes.
Okay, I won't take 3 minutes. I just wanted to point out earlier it was mentioned about other cities that have a topless ordinance, but I would just like to add what they left out is that there are cities across the country that are doing away with their topless ordinances and finding it that promotes gender inequality. And I believe one of the cities is in Kansas, and that's Manhattan. I think I've read that they did away with their topless ordinance. So if they're going to be pointing out the cities that have ordinances banning topless, I'd just like to point out that there's at least another city, or at least a city in Kansas that's done away with theirs. So thank you.
This is Commissioner Sellers. Thank you, Commissioner, not Commissioner, but Mr. Flowers, for those comments. I do remember you pointing that out in your written comments almost a year ago to this commission. So those were noted, and hopefully as this continues to progress, we'll be able to provide updates on that. So are there any other individuals online that would wish to provide comments?
Commissioner or Chair Sellers, I do have a question about as it pertains to this group, and maybe Dr. Muhammad would be able to answer this too. Is there some kind of rule or regulation for the people on this board that would mandate like us to resign if we missed a certain amount of consecutive sessions or things like that? Thank you.
This is Dr. Ferris Muhammad. Thanks for the question there, Commissioner Stevens. I will have to take a closer look at the bylaws. I know a lot of times most bylaws do state that if an individual or board member or commissioner missed 3 consecutive meetings without any rationale or excuse, a lot of times bylaws would suggest that that person have involuntarily resigned, but I have to take a closer look at the bylaws as it relates specifically to the Human Relations Commission and see how that's applicable.
This is Commissioner Barnett. We do have such language in our bylaws. I can't remember what it says, but we do need to have excused absences. So there is something that speaks to that in our bylaws. I just can't remember what it says.
And this is Commissioner Sellers. Commissioner Barnett beat me to the punch, and Commissioner Stevens was actually in my head today. So yes, to this point that I wanted us to review that, and I think that the key piece there is the excused versus unexcused, and how that language reflects one's ability to resign after missing so many excused, and what that looks like as far as unexcused absences from meetings. I know it's been a year or so, not quite, well, almost, that we've switched to quarterly meetings to monthly meetings, and I know that that has had an impact. And for those who I've always preached about context and intent, oftentimes when ordinances are written, the context may be based on quarterly meetings. So one missing 3 meetings in a quarter looks a lot different than a person missing 3 meetings monthly. But in short, it does need to be reviewed so that if there's recommendations that need to be made for that to be amended, we can definitely move that forward as well. So, any questions about attendance or things of that nature? Anything for the good of the order, commissioners?
This is Commissioner Emerson. The only question I had on that is because Chapter 10 ordinances, it's quite a bit different than, bylaws. And so I was just thinking about like, what would that look like if we, as a commission, we're going to be reviewing our bylaws? Like, how would we go about that collectively?
This is Commissioner Sellers. Commissioner Emerson, I would say, one, it would just need to be an agenda item, and we would need to discuss how that work would be done. That could be work that is done during a meeting. That could be work that is assigned to an ad hoc or a special meeting, a special committee. It could be the work assigned to a current committee. So it just depends on good old parliamentary procedure and recommendations and discussion.
This is Commissioner Sheldon Sherman. Commissioner Emerson, to your question also, I think our bylaws require a 2/3 majority of the commissioners to approve an amendment to our bylaws.
All right. Any other questions regarding bylaws as it relates, or in general questions, or as it relates to attendance?
Yeah, this is Dr. Faris Muhammad. I did pull up the bylaws for the Human Relations Commission, and under Article 8, there is a section dealing with attendance that I can draw you all to, and I have it pulled up if anyone cares for me to share, but if not, I can send a link out so you all can review the document and access it.
This is Commissioner Sellers. I would say, if you have it available to share your screen, I'd say go ahead and bring it up to at least provide context for the conversation, and if we need to bring it, we can add it to next month's agenda.
This is Dr. Faris Muhammad. Are you all able to see this?
Yeah.
Or just the bylaws? So I'll just scroll to the top of it and draw you all's attention back down to the bottom of page 3. So just to show the City of Lawrence Human Relations Commission bylaws. And as I typed in just attendance, it takes me down to near the bottom of the page 3, Article 8, subsection attendance. And so it does have some language in here explaining, I guess you all can review it. I don't want to read it word for word. Please feel free to tell me to scroll down or zoom in if need be.
This is Commissioner Sellers. So not sure how laborious of work this would be for you, Dr. Muhammad, but is there any way that you would be able to, and I'd be more than happy to assist, because I know oftentimes if there's an email notifying of absence of a meeting, sometimes I get it, and oftentimes you get it and forward it to me. Is there any way that we could possibly, you could provide, not necessarily provide, but at least outline how close we have had commissioners to having consecutive meetings missed, or if there's any commissioner who has missed 2 consecutive meetings who is now at that threshold of being rolled off the commission?
Dr. Faris Muhammad, I know normally when a commissioner do inform me that they will not be present for the meeting, such was the case today with Commissioner Logan. I think I forwarded that over to you, Chairperson Sellers. Usually I try to forward that information over, but as far as looking back, I'm not sure how that's being tracked related to which commissioners were in attendance. I know we can go back and probably look at the different minutes or who registered for what meeting. So I'm sure there's a mechanism that we can utilize to track that, depending on how far back we want to go, or if that's something we want to pay closer attention to moving forward.
And this is Commissioner Sellers. I do believe there's an opportunity for us to pay closer attention to that moving forward. I know, as I stated, we do have our September meeting, and then we have the possibility of commissioners either renewing their appointment or either terming out. And so the idea of setting that precedence and having that having commissioners be mindful of that, one, will account for that, will be able to help with that accountability piece, as well as remind commissioners the importance of notifying, and then at least there's a mechanism there for myself as chair or you as liaison to reach out to those commissioners who've missed to moving forward if they're not, and reaching out to them and discussing with them what that means per the bylaws and what the next steps would be moving forward. So, any other thoughts from other commissioners?
Commissioner Sellers or Chairperson Sellers, if we're going to talk about this in the future, specifically, since a lot of our work is now being directed in subcommittees, I ask that we're pretty specific about that membership on the subcommittees and just what the expectations are. I think that would maybe help some of our groups out.
Yeah. And this is Commissioner Sellers. I think Commissioner Bloxham, you bring up an excellent point in regards to attendance. And I think these are things that, as it may not align with committee work, these are things that if they're on your mind now, to share those recommendations and input with the committee. So although things may not align, you may not think it aligns to your work, these are opportunities for us to think outside the scope of your committee work, as this is a betterment to the commission as a whole. So if anyone has input or language to share around what that could look like if we want to make amendments to our bylaws, then this is an opportunity to do that. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? All right, seeing none, you guys must like having your summers back. So if there's any other thoughts, we will adjourn our meeting this evening at 6:41. Commissioners, thank you again for some spirited discussion this evening, and we'll see you all in September.